Hello and welcome to Out of Money podcast, your go-to space for conversations that truly matter in the world of personal finance. I am Ankita Verma, and in today's episode, we are diving into something that lies at the core of every financial decision, and that is trust, or as we say, bharosa. In a world that's constantly evolving, building genuine trust around money, protection, and long term planning has never become more important than ever. Our guest today is someone whose work is deeply aligned with this mission. I'm delighted to be joined by Mr. Rahul Talwar, Chief Marketing Officer at Axis Max Life Insurance. The company has been spearheading trusted financial decision making through powerful initiatives like Bharosa Talks and through pioneering research such as the India Protection Quotient and the India Retirement Index study. Rahul, thank you for joining us today. To start us off, could you give us a quick overview of Bharosa Talks? What inspired Access Max Life to launch it, and what makes it different from other awareness platforms?
No, thank you, Ankita. Thank you for having me here. Interestingly, we're talking about Bharosa Talks. And if you were to look at the larger life insurance space, Ankita, and because you've seen this category from close, you would have picked up that one of the underpinning pieces for the life insurance category is this entire emotive concept called trust. Because we are in relationship with our customers for a long duration. If the customers were to believe in a saying which is very much applicable to the category, which says life insurance is best bought yesterday, and if you were to go with that kind of a thinking as a very aggressive and a challenger business in the market, Axis Max Life Insurance, which has been at its pioneer position for the last 24 odd years. What led to the entire evolution of Bharosa Talks was this entire thinking of wanting to do a bit of thought leadership conversations under the umbrella of Axis Max Life Insurance. Because what we have realized that in the conversational nature of discussions with our prospects or with our customers, this entire thought leadership conversations, which is driven by insights, which is driven by data, they tend to open up minds a lot more. And if you were to look at the larger category play, we have seen that the opportunity that we are all trying to solve for, including the regulator, under the theme of insurance for all by 2047, is to be able to bridge the gap between this intent of having the right life insurance and the actual cover or sum assured that an individual should be having in that sense. And we believe that Bharosa Talks is that thought leadership platform which allows you to talk about financial security. It's also a platform which should eventually evolve as we go forward into a platform for the ecosystem. It's not only about a manufacturer, it's about the manufacturer, key opinion leaders. You're going to have participants from the regulatory frame as well to be able to come in and give their views in that sense. And closer home, if you were to look at Bharosa Talks, it actually is an coming together of two platforms that we have been working with for the last 7 years in one case, which is the India Protection Quotient, and another one on the retirement space, which is the India Retirement Index study, running in its fourth edition. So, three messages for your audience. Bharosa Talks is about igniting genuine dialogues. It's about dialogues which are anchored in data. And in turn, the idea is to be able to cultivate trust or bharosa with our customers and future prospects in that sense.
Okay, I think that's kind of approach that actually shifts mindsets over time. Now, you talked about the India Protection Quotient and how it is now in its seventh edition. And we believe that it's one of the most recognized studies in the insurance sector. Looking back at these 7 years, what are some surprising shifts in how Indians approach financial protection and security?
Specifically, Ankita, the point that you made about insights emerging from the seventh edition of the India Protection Quotient, we believe that we have picked up a few points of evolution on the mindset side when they look at financial protection and financial security. The first one that we have seen is this entire piece of looking at life insurance premium forward or cover backward. And we believe that one of the big trends that we are calling out is this entire rise of cover over premium when you look at term insurance as a specific category. I think what this change is telling us and is pointing towards is the growing maturity of breadwinners and young families when they're looking at financial planning, where what we have seen is that now 3 out of 4 respondents in the study are prioritizing adequate protection for their families versus looking at what they can afford from a premium standpoint. So I think that's an interesting trend. The second one that we have nuanced is the point from where I started this conversation around the breadwinner being more universal versus, again, having a specific view to a male breadwinner. And the second trend that we're calling out is this entire widening and a nuanced gender gap piece that's evolving in the space of financial protection. And what this also does, it also points towards the larger thematic of insurance for all, where we are seeing an increasing role of women in financial planning. And what this study has done is that it's told us that how women are now having a heightened view around conversations of inflation, of healthcare costs, and also trying to portray this hypothetical scenario of an eventuality. In fact, interestingly, within the seventh edition, Ankita, what we've also done that not only looking at urban women, we've also been able to look at a rural view to this particular gender gap. And again, we have seen that while obviously we knew this point intuitively, but data tells us that rural women are again lagging versus the men in that cohort. But again, in terms of female-led households, self-help groups coming into more action around heightened engagement for financial literacies are again pieces that we're picking up from the study. And the third big evolution insight that we've picked up is this entire piece of the digital surge, which is actually acting as a big catalyst for financial inclusion. And obviously, it extended itself to the entire space of rural. So between the rise of cover over premium, the widening and nuancing gender gap, and more importantly, the digital surge, are the three tenets of the evolution insights that we've picked up from the seventh edition.
Considering how financial awareness has actually evolved in the recent years, post-COVID and everything, I think these shifts are very telling. You've actually answered half of my next question, but I'll ask it anyway. How do you identify our different consumer segments in the IPQ study? Are there any new or underserved groups that have been added this year now?
So again, Ankita, like from where we started this entire interaction, we said Bharosa Talks, and under Bharosa Talks, India Protection Quotient is a thought leader platform. And if it's a thought leader platform, it needs to be able to point towards the larger thematic in the category driven by the manufacturers and the regulator, which is the big thematic of insurance for all. And any thought leader platform would underserve itself if you were to just maybe look at the cohorts in a very atypical way. The idea is to be able to go back to a broader audience. So we have looked at not only the demographics and behavioral segments, but we have also gone out and looked at nuanced ways of looking at rural. Interestingly, and like I started by saying that we are progressive, we are aggressive and a challenger brand in the category. We have really picked up this entire thematic of insurance for all and also included, Ankita, the LGBTQIA plus community in this study to be able to come back and tell us as to what this community is feeling. Because end of the day, if the life insurance category and Axis Max Life Insurance aim is to be able to be far more inclusive, then we need to be able to introduce more of these segments and cohorts in our conversations.
You're so right, Raud. Including diverse cohorts definitely makes the findings more inclusive and more actionable too. So my next question is exactly what you were talking about. Latest IPQ data reveals that the LGBTQIA plus community still remains significantly underprotected. What steps can the financial service industry take to bridge this gap and help the community build a more financially secure tomorrow?
So again, it's one of those most progressive questions that I think all of us and all of us have a role to play in the larger ecosystem. Us as manufacturers, you as our partners in this journey, who end of the day carry these messages across. If you look at the community, Ankita, in that sense, the seventh edition of IPQ tells us that yes, they are lagging. If you look at how much are they lagging by considerable amounts, the protection quotient for the community stands at 35 versus a 56 for the digitally savvy urban Indians. And if you were to look at, interestingly, the point that you're taking towards, which is about life insurance ownership, against the number of 82 for urban Indians, it stacks up at 66. And if you were to look at the challenges that this community would be facing when you look at a life insurance conversation, they would stem from historical exclusion. They would stem from lack of legal recognition for same-sex relationships, and more importantly, the entire documentation process for individuals like transgenders. And if you were to look at the entire ecosystem that we are all a part of, interestingly, as manufacturers, I think what we need to do is to be able to ensure that we're developing products which are far more inclusive. We need to be able to look at services which invariably look at their specific needs, and it's evolving with time. Enhancing financial literacy and awareness. Again, we need to have an identity sensitive education program. We need to be able to have partnerships with representations from the community. For example, at Access Max Life Insurance, when we do the community representation in the study, we work with, say, some ecosystem partners like the Pride Circle, because it's not important to bring their voice, but it's important to bring their voice with a degree of sensitivity and inclusivity. The other parts, because we are again a specific industry which has a huge play of a human assisted sales model, we need to be able to look at access points, training for that matter, and equally play our role in the overall advocacy program that we would have with key opinion leaders, with the regulatory frameworks, etc., to ensure that insights, their voices, and future actions are all brought to the table for further discussions.
I think equity in financial protection is long overdue. It's encouraging to see this gap being acknowledged. Let's shift focus to the rural edition of IPQ. You've adopted creative community-based tools like Nukkad Nataks, Bear Talks. How are you helping tackle trust and access barriers in these rural India?
So again, life insurance conversations and the life insurance agenda in rural India is very much on the table across the industry. There is this entire framework called the State Insurance Plan, Ankita, which gets triggered from a regulatory conversation between the regulator as well as the manufacturers. And as Access Max Life Insurance, under the State Insurance Plan, we launched our entire insurance awareness drive in the state of Uttar Pradesh, and with this specific platform called the India Protection Quotient, we have driven activations across 50 odd villages, which, as we speak, is currently on. The intention of doing these kind of activations and these kind of access points under this conversation of financial literacy is to be able to ensure that we're able to remove barriers for this audience. It's also an idea which stems from the fact that we need to bring in more nudges around the socio behavior aspects, where the audience from rural India starts looking at life insurance as a very important part of financial planning, and they understand that what may seem irrelevant to them is actually not. And if you were to look at the key barriers that we are trying to address or trying to include in this entire piece, is looking at the fact that life insurance as a tool doesn't only give benefits to the family, it's also something that gives benefit to the individual. The entire piece around affordability and how affordability concerns and lack of funds can be brought together. How can barriers around service levels and service experience be definitely addressed? And lastly is around complexity of the category, which sometimes gets overblown. I think the idea is to be able to try and make it simpler, and also try to have questions answered around inaccessibility. And I think that's the piece that we are trying to do. Concepts like Nukkad Nataks, community Baithaks, etc., is more about sparking real conversations, because what we've realized that in these kind of geographies and cohorts, it's conversations that eventually evolve to building trust and retaining of trust, and hence this kind of a framework. We have also looked at more culturally rooted storytelling to be able to simplify life insurance and again make it more relevant. We have looked at a bit of gamification with the penetration of digital, with the penetration of mobile and mobility. We have seen that gamification of even life insurance becomes an easy way of again retaining the message. And lastly, but more importantly, is this entire piece of an always on financial literacy education as the underpinning theme. Because again, it points to conversations, It points to a framework that they appeal to and doesn't look like a monologue. So I think that's the approach that we have taken in this activation.
So that's your long-term impacts that you envision from these rural activations, Ram?
So what we're impacting, or what we're looking as impact area again for us, and an important part, I think these initiatives need to be a bit more long term and consistent. For activating these kind of cohorts, it needs to be an always on kind of an approach. So we're looking at one, sustainable financial literacy and empowerment. We are looking at ways and means to equip individuals, specifically women, again because women play a very important role in this conversation for this cohort. Concepts like self-help groups, looking at basic financial knowledge, and also more importantly trying to help them to understand this concept of a human life value. I think the minute they do that and they understand it as life evolves, I think they should be able to come into the fold of this conversation. Second, one of the impact areas is looking at bridging the trust and the access gap. I think by looking at having our feet on street with them for face-to-face conversations, demonstration of our commitment and trust by having a physical touch point. I think that's an important part of a long-term impact. And uh, you look at product, you look at ecosystem development. I think all of that needs to happen beyond intent. So actions being taken basis learnings that we have on board, looking at taking the state insurance plan with more gravitas down in the states of Uttar Pradesh, for that matter. And if you bring all of this together, I think it's our deep rooted commitment as Axis Max Life Insurance towards insurance for all by 2047, and to be able to ensure that we live up to that vision of every Indian having say a vibrant financial security driven future as they go forward.
I think sometimes the most powerful change comes through conversations on the ground. So, Rahul, I would like to dig a little deeper in this. You said IRDA's insurance for all by 2047 in building a sustainable financial literacy. Uh, are there any underserved communities? How are you helping them? Can you help us understand this a bit more in detail?
I think I would not maybe start by saying as underserved communities, but I'm going to say that there is a specific cohort in our social fabric which has a heightened importance when we look at financial planning. And if you look at again the ecosystem of regulator, manufacturers, new fintech players, etc., everybody is pointing towards that. And no points for guessing. I'm talking to you as again one of say the ambassadors of the women representation, and I'm talking about women as a larger cohort. And interestingly, Ankita, what we have seen is that the category, for the reasons that it's existed around us for legacy years, we had a very mono view to the breadwinner, and we always assume that the category is more relevant to the male breadwinner. I think at Axis Max Life Insurance, we have been fairly progressive and open-minded to look at the breadwinner in a bit more universal way, and we acknowledge the importance of women in financial planning. And if you were to look at even at a marketing storytelling level, or at a brand strategic level, we have actually figured out that this entire emotional storytelling is far more inclusive and far more data driven if and when we bring in the young family view beyond just the male breadwinner. And that's one of the narratives that we have picked up. What we have also looked at upon the fact is, again, the first point I made in the beginning of the interaction: life insurance best bought yesterday means we want to catch them young. We know that a young family mindful living concept appeals to the audience a lot more. Interestingly, at a brand level, when typically brands have gone out and looked at celebrity endorsements within the category with, say, a mono gender view, we have gone out and picked up our celebrity strategy from the roots of a young family mindset. And we not only went out and have a partnership with Rohit Sharma, the Indian cricket captain, as our brand ambassador, but we have him and his real wife, Ritika Sajde, as our brand ambassadors in that sense, to be able to ensure that we appeal to the younger audience. You look at our work around Bharosa Talks with India Protection Quotient, and also with our retirement platform, we have a universal view to genders in that sense. Uh, Our product strategy also appeals to the women cohorts. There are specific product propositions that we have launched in the market, keeping them in mind. For example, a Smart Term Plan Plus, where we have a 15% premium discount for our women folks. We have a Lifeline Plus option, which again gives enhanced protections to women who have evolving needs. Interestingly, as an employer, Axis Max Life Insurance has been recognized as being among the top 50 best places to work for women. Women as sellers and women as advisors, they are always at having an edge, thanks to the fundamental empathy that women have versus the men. So, if you were to look at our overall play around what you started by saying as an underserved community, I would say is a strategic cohort for us. And we have a very holistic diversity, equity, inclusion view across all levers of the business for them.
I think empowering women through both leadership and tailored products is a great example of inside out change. Uh, so, my next question to you, Rahul, is we often hear that research drives innovation. How do insights from IPQ or the India Retirement Index shape your product design or engagement strategy? To share an example where the data actually led to a concrete solution.
So again, good question, Ankita. I think what studies like the India Protection Quotient or the retirement platform under Bharosa Talks offer, they first offer what we call as the behaviors and attitudes that consumers or respondents at large are pointing towards. And interestingly, because you mentioned this in the earlier part of the interaction, these studies not only offer data point in a specific edition, they tend to offer a kind of a trend line. So you are able to see a degree of an evolution. So that's one. But these studies don't necessarily just offer insights around behaviors and attitudes. They also tend to give us a bit more of data nuggets around the way respondents or audience is consuming a certain kind of a product category. When you try and put both these pieces together around product insights and around their life behaviors and attitudes, you're able to come down to a specific product concept, which could then yield into a product innovation. For example, recognizing this entire financial preparedness for women over time led to the creation of the Smart Term Plan Plus, where we have a specific, I would say, feature which is designed to address the distinctive needs of women for that matter. Also, if you were to look at a very recent example, we have a product that we recently launched by the name called Smart Vibe. Now, as the name suggests, the product Smart Vibe is adopting a Gen Z focused approach to be able to again bring them into the fold of life insurance conversation, and also allows us to give a very big communication platform, because you don't have then a technical product being spoken to in a language that they want. You have a relatable product being spoken to them in a relatable conversation.
I think that's a great example of data turning into something real for customers. Often that's what builds lasting trust. And my next question was exactly this. That how is Access Max Life simplifying insurance and retirement planning for everyday consumers who may find these topics very intimidating?
So again, yeah, I would agree that from distance, the topic or the conversations may look a bit intimidating, but I think that's where leaders like yourselves and your platforms come into play to ensure that the audience that's sticking onto this conversation is able to find simpler nuggets and simpler ways of consuming the product and the category. I think at Axis Max Life Insurance, it's an approach that straddles across maybe two or three pillars in that sense. The first one is anchored on looking at again data and data to be able to not leaving at insights but converting it into say tailored communication plans to be able to ensure that we are getting into targeted messaging, cohort specific product development pieces. Second, again, is something that's close to my heart. That's accessible content and storytelling. Demystifying it on the back of content that could be vernacular, content that could have an interplay between static and video. In fact, Bharosa Talks as a platform also allows to have a play of influencers and local influencers to come in and convey these stories in a far more interactive way. I think the answer would be left short if we don't talk about personalization, because what we have realized is that while digital is great, But digital, when converted into personalized engagements, I think is where the magic comes from. So looking at AI powered solutions, looking at chatbots to have hyper personalized content, to be able to have a balance between, Ankita, do it yourself and do it for me, which is the new currency that consumers are looking at, to be able to have their experiences from various brands, and more importantly, have conversations on information that's transparent. I think transparency has huge valency in that sense. We are a category which gets consumed where the moment of truth comes maybe years later. For a few products, it may come after 5 years. For few, it may come after 10 years. And for few, it may come after 25 years. And by the way, at moment of truth, uh, fingers crossed, but the individual who may have picked up the product may not be around to consume the service. And that's where we talk about this entire piece around claims. And I think claims as a platform has been one of those superior experiences that Axis Max Life Insurance has been anchoring on as an enterprise and as a business. So our claims guarantee in terms of service promise, our entire empathy around the claims process by having a dedicated support in the journey, either for the nominee or for the individual, as the product type may be, and more importantly, keeping the claims conversation consistent and always on. Because what that does is it builds trust to say that if and when I may need, in that moment of truth, this brand by the name Axis Max Life Insurance is going to be very much there, and not make it complex or mystified in terms of the experience.
I think that's great, Rahul. It's so important to simplify. Not everybody speaks finance because that can be a real barrier to action. So my final question to you is, what's next for Bharosa Talks? How do you see it evolving in the years ahead? And what kind of impact do you hope it continues to create for Indian consumers?
So Ankita, again for you and for your audience, interestingly, IPQ India Protection Quotient turns 7 this year, and India Retirement Index has turned 4. We brought them together as a thought leader platform under Bharosa Talks, because we realized that it's important that the audience, the consuming audience, whether it's from the media perspective, whether from consumers, they're able to look at what we are pointing towards when we look at protection and retirement. And that's the long-term Bharosa conversation that we're trying to have. Like I mentioned earlier, we have our North Star for Bharosa Talks to be able to establish it as an undisputed benchmark for financial preparedness, discourse, and conversation in India. We wanted to evolve into an ecosystem platform versus just being a platform where a manufacturer is talking to a audience. We are also looking at this as an year-round conversational agenda where we are able to tap into forums, impactful forums like FICCI, CII, or some media platforms where we again bring in more visibility for it. Uh, Customization of insights, deepening segmentations, I think is one thematic as an impact area that we see emerging from Bharosa Talks. Uh, I think, like you said earlier, and we have seen in the times that we are sitting in, insights with no action versus insights converting to actionable outcomes. I think that's the intention for Bharosa Talks. And more importantly, Bharosa Talks as a platform should be able to embrace the ongoing conversation on digital and digitization. I think that's going to be a true measure of Bharosa Talks being relevant in today's time. And I think by evolving Bharosa Talks, we were to play to our long-term commitment of playing our role in this program of financial literacy and awareness, and also trying to be one of the most admired life insurance businesses in India. So I think that's the larger vision for Bharosa Talks. Fingers crossed.
I think we are really looking forward to seeing how the next chapter of Bharosa Talks unfolds. It seems like you're just getting started. Thank you so much, Rahul, for sharing these valuable insights and for giving us a deeper understanding of how trust protection are coming together at Access Max Life Insurance.
Thank you, Ankita. Thank you for having me here.
Clear that the platform like Bharosa Talks, backed by robust research and customer-led philosophy, can make a real difference in the way Indians approach their financial future. And for our listeners, thank you for tuning into this episode of Outlook Panel podcast. We hope this conversation has given you new ideas, more clarity, and a little more Bharosa in your own financial journey. Until next time, stay informed, stay secure, and keep building your own path to financial confidence.
Insurance is the subject matter of the solicitation.